In the meantime, we want to bring in Cathie Wood, CEO of ARK Invest, talk markets this morning and some of these big name stocks. Of course, one of the stocks that Cathie loves a lot is Tesla. Want to talk to her about that one as well. First of all, Cathie, before we even get to Tesla, just what's your take on where the market is right now? We are looking at a market that really looks like we're back in 2019. Does that make sense to you on a risk-adjusted basis?
Well, the way we've been looking at this market is it's more like that in 1987 when we went through the Black Monday. The market was down more than 20% in one day. So that was a real shock to the system because portfolio insurance failed. And then again at 9/11, another shock to the market because of the terrorist attacks. And what we saw from those two shocks, these were exogenous shocks. They did not come from within the economy. We saw that the trends in motion before those shocks remained in motion after. So the 80s, great bull market, great growth, continued apace after several months of settling down and allaying fears. And then in 01, we were in the middle of the tech and telecom bust. Trend in motion remained in motion. We were in the bust for another 18 months, roughly. We were in a very strong economy before this attack and the shock. And moreover, the consumer was doing very well and had a very high saving rate, 8%. Businesses had been pulling back for more than a year because of the China trade conflict and because of inverted yield curves, scaring them about recession. So they were also in good shape in terms of didn't have a lot of inventories, weren't even keeping up with demand, had pulled back on capital spending. We think that the consumer will come back and that businesses are going to have to chase them. So we do believe this is going to be more V-like than most do.
How dependent is that on the government basically throwing helicopter money at everybody?
Well, it is. Yesterday, we got news from the Fed. M2 growth is up in the mid to high teens. We have not seen this since the early 80s. So we certainly see the stimulus out there. I think if, and my mentor, Art Laffer, has been espousing this, if we don't get off the ground as quickly, if it's frustrating, I think that one of his ideas, a payroll tax holiday for both sides, employer, employees, that could really encourage, would be a huge incentive to get activity back this year. And I've heard President Trump mention it. I don't think they've done anything about it yet, but I know they're thinking about it.
But the reason I ask is if this does extend longer, and clearly there are people who are going to be going back to work and hopefully soon, and hopefully in May we'll see some people back at work. The question is, I think, less on the supply side, meaning there's going to be the availability of supply. I think the real question is going to be on the demand side, or do you not see it that way?
No, as I said, the consumer certainly went into this on average in good shape. Now, obviously, some people with not a lot of savings buffer have been hurt tremendously in here. But I think on average, that 8% saving rate was a nice buffer to enter this. And I do believe, I believe there's a lot of pent-up demand out there as long as people have kept their jobs. And that's why I think this administration is trying to keep the infrastructure in place so there are jobs for people to go back to. Okay.
And then finally, just cars, because we always talk Tesla with you. You think people are going to be buying cars this year? There's a report out that in the EU, sales for vehicles down about 55% across the board last month.
Right. And I think the traditional auto industry is in a heap of trouble here. And because of that, we're seeing them scale back on investment spending, including on electric vehicles, which they really shouldn't be doing that because that is the new world. But I don't think they have any choice. They're cutting back on everything. So I think that Tesla's market share is going to be much higher in this space than we originally thought. We've been in our assumptions, assuming that they would maintain market share. We were beginning to believe they would increase market share because they're so far ahead of the competition. Now we're pretty sure of it.